I am recording this video just slightly ahead, but if we're looking at how Hedera and HBAR have been really kind of performing over the last roughly 24 hours, I hate to be that guy, but I'm really not surprised with the market sell-off today. If you guys did watch my recent HBAR video, you guys already know that I was looking at this overall trend. I was waiting for HBAR to have some sort of significant push to the downside, possibly retesting this trend line perfectly. We did tap around almost 16.5 cents. I'm watching to see if we can maintain those lows and we can start to flip some of the previous highs and just create bullish structure on this chart. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm not really surprised with this recent market sell-off. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people that are still panicky, maybe even a little bit negative, which is to be expected, and I understand. We have just been waiting, right? The main thing that I've been mentioning all throughout this year when it comes to altcoins like HBAR is that, yeah, this is a very frustrating time. It's an extremely frustrating time because we are seeing so much good news, and when we look at the chart, we're still essentially consolidating. I want to say that we've been consolidating. We have been in a downtrend, but we have essentially been consolidating since going all the way back to the middle of January of this year. We're talking about almost 10 months now. So, we're coming up on almost a whole year that we haven't really witnessed any significant move on the price chart. And everyone thinks that immediately once the price chart is looking like this or it hasn't done really much, that immediately the project is just a waste of time. But I want to make sure that you guys understand that sometimes it's not all about price action. It's what's going to lead us to positive price action. I even mentioned this going all the way back to 2024 before the big move happened. And I said, listen, we will get to the point where price action is here. We just have to get through this very frustrating time because, again, what we were seeing is, so many big updates around Hedera. We were seeing Hedera really constantly making big moves, major expansions, partnerships, things like that. And that's all pressure. And even today, we still have that ongoing. The only difference now is that we have ETFs. We have an ETF around Hedera. We have a ton of great expansion happening around the ecosystem, dev activity just going crazy. And if we're thinking about that, that's all positive pressure behind HBAR. I'm sure that the market will bounce back. I don't think that, we're at that point in the market where, all right, let's pack it up. It's done. It's over. I don't think that we're there. But the main thing that we're looking at here is how the market is shifting, how things are starting to change a bit. And ETFs definitely impact the future of this market in a positive way. Now, we talked about the Canary HBAR ETF. HBAR Tata did recently put out a great visualization of just how big the HBAR ETF has been so far in the last 4 days. So on pre-launch, we definitely saw a little bit of inflows. Day one, slightly, right? It was about a $3 million inflow into HBAR. Day two was 35 million. Day three was 45, and day four was $70 million. This is equivalent to 360 million HBAR. In just 4 days, growing from 5.5 million HBAR to over 360 million HBAR. Over $70 million in assets under management in just less than a week. This is impressive. It's impressive because, again, this is an altcoin, right? Everyone has been focused on the Bitcoin ETF and the Ethereum ETF, but we are watching as the hunger for even altcoin ETFs, it's growing more and more. Wall Street has an appetite here, and it's very clear on why. Because, again, the demand is there as well. Over the last couple of days, it has come to my attention that we are now witnessing more and more users having money frozen on exchanges like MEXC. This is a big issue, and it's an issue that plagues the crypto space. It's at a time where these exchanges are not fully regulated. It's a big issue. This is why when I've always mentioned if you wanted to hold your crypto in custody, it could be cold storage. It doesn't matter where you are holding it. Never hold it on these exchanges. Now, I will say ITrustCapital does offer a premium custody account, which provides you institutional grade custody. This is a US based company with live client service and support. And you can buy and sell crypto 24/7 on this platform, which is a closed loop system that is extremely secure with low fees. We could also see here that ITrustCapital does provide you with every single thing that you possibly need when you are buying, selling, or holding crypto on their platform. If you guys do want to sign up with a premium custody account today, you guys are more so welcome to do so through my link that is down in the description below. If you deposit $1,000, you get a $100 funding bonus on top of it. And with that being said, let's jump back on into the video. Now, we also heard from the Canary, this is the chief business officer at Hedera regarding the Canary ETF. And this is from Crypto in America. This is hosted by a few great individuals from the space, mainly, of course, Eleanor Tourette. We have growing institutional interest in infrastructure-focused crypto ETFs. This is Gregory L. Bell, the chief business officer at Hedera, regarding ETF demand and the future around the space with, institutional interest just growing. So check this out.
When it comes to tapping into institutional access on Wall Street, what would you say is really driving the demand there right now?
What we've seen, at least over the last, 3 days or so, there's over, I believe, 45 million that is now held in the Canary Capital ETF. And so, the demand is there. I'm excited to see it continue to grow. I would say it's really about a shift from purely speculative crypto assets to infrastructure layers. And infrastructure layers that really power real world financial applications. Hedera is run by a network of Fortune 500 corporations. Investors would be already very familiar with many of the firms that are operating Hedera: Google and IBM, Dell, Mondelez, Standard Bank, the list goes on. And so, it's a recognition of maturity of the network, maturity of the digital assets landscape as a whole, and a new way that is more accessible to institutions in many ways to gain access to this infrastructure layer.
And that's something that I always mentioned even with the Bitcoin ETFs, right? Because again, the Bitcoin ETFs launched at a time where crypto was extremely, negative. Like everyone around the, government, essentially, like even the SEC, right? They were extremely hostile towards crypto. Institutional players, they knew that the tech was there, that the tech was extremely valuable, but they didn't want to touch it. They didn't want to touch it because there was so much hostility towards crypto. But they figured out a way to get, a small piece of the space, and that was through ETFs. So institutional players are looking at this. Obviously, their interest is pretty high, and they're looking at this as a way to get a piece of the space. And that's why the HBAR ETF is so important to focus on, because it's showing us that the demand is there and the appetite from Wall Street is also there and the institutional players. I'm very excited about what's going to happen going forward, because I still think that we see a lot more approvals around altcoin ETFs. And of course, HBAR will most likely see more as well, over the next couple months. But it's just a very exciting time to see this type of interest, see this type of demand, especially for HBAR. Now, outside of that, right, institutional access. I still think that one of the biggest things around the institutional side of things is DeFi. I still think institutional DeFi is going to be a big game changer, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But I want to focus on DeFi when it comes back to Hedera, because Canonical wrapped Ethereum via Stargate Finance just went live on Bonzo Finance. For those that don't know, Bonzo Finance is a lending and borrowing protocol on Hedera. They've been building on Hedera for well over almost a year now. And if we're looking at Hedera's DeFi market side, right? $91+ million in TVL, nothing too crazy there. But if we're looking at Bonzo Finance, it's the technically second largest protocol because Stater is liquid staking, but we'll just say it's the third, right? But Bonzo Finance has kind of become a big piece of the Hedera ecosystem. We're still very early. I want to say that, and I want to stress on that as well, because we are still very early when it comes back to DeFi on some of these platforms. Hedera has been growing slowly but surely over time. We're still hovering around like roughly $90 million. It's not a bad thing. But I do suspect that this value will grow substantially over time as more and more protocols do launch and some of the protocols that are already on Hedera start to expand more. But I do think that the biggest driver here will be institutional DeFi. Okay, and we know that institutional DeFi is coming, but we also know that DeFi around Hedera already is starting to expand. We witnessed a big update recently on the 30th, which was Agentic DeFi is now live on Hedera with Agent Hustle AI, the on-chain agent built by Emblem Vault. Through natural language, users can now buy, sell, and set conditional orders for Hedera tokens via the Agent Hustle UI. This is definitely a big expansion. I've been seeing a lot of these like AI agents start to become more integrated within the DeFi side of the market. I think that this is good. I obviously think that it's just a nice way to, integrate AI into the DeFi side of Hedera to expand it. And we've been witnessing a few of these big updates from the Hedera side of the market behind agentic DeFi and AI with DeFi, of course, as well. So, again, it's a good update. It's nothing too crazy, but this is just one of many of the recent moves that Hedera did make to support DeFi. Like, for an example, and I did make a video on this going back to roughly like October 21st or so. It was 250 million HBAR that Hedera did send to this wallet, and this was happy staking. This was just to support the staking side of the ecosystem. But the main thing that we were looking at here, right, was the fact that they were committed to driving both institutional and retail adoption of, Hedera DeFi. Now, within this, they did mention something very, very interesting. And that is, of course, institutional DeFi. Okay, they are looking into institutional DeFi and they are taking it very serious. I also think that even with the ETF, which we already know, Hedera is now fully focused on the next stage, which is institutional grade DeFi. They mentioned this after the Canary ETF went live. With all of the recent expansions from Hedera behind DeFi, I do think that this is a very good time for them to start recognizing the value behind institutional grade DeFi. Obviously, they're not, blind to this, but this is definitely going to be like the next big wave for DeFi as a whole. I still think that the main reason why Ethereum has been a massive leader in terms of DeFi TVL is because they've been working with some of the biggest names out there for the, longest time now. You got to remember that Ethereum has been around for well over a decade, and it's become one of the most adopted networks for institutional grade applications and even enterprise grade applications. But I do think that that will shift over time. We've already started to kind of see that shift, and I think that some of these networks, like of course Hedera, they're prime time for major adoption around the institutional side when it comes back to DeFi or payments or any other type of use cases. And again, when it comes back to, just dev activity, a lot of these recent moves are confirmation that we are starting to see the ecosystem really pick up from the dev side, which is also why we have been putting a big spotlight on just dev activity, core developers building on Hedera as well. Like, for an example, this is from HBAR Tata. This is from the 2nd. We have Hedera climbs to number 2 for core developers. Wouldn't be surprised to see this rise further. Now that Hedera's source code, Hyro or Hero, I call it Hero, I know that a lot of people call it Hyro, is the open source DLT of the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. And if we're looking at this is from Token Terminal, we do see Hedera at number 2. It's extremely impressive, right? Like, I really do think that, at this stage, Hedera is starting to grow massively, not because of, all right, they started to shift, and switch things up. No, it's because Hedera offers such a core piece of the crypto space to the devs. What is that core piece? Well, it's the fact that Hedera is offering a fully built out infrastructure that is almost becoming the foundation of highly scalable use cases. Because again, Hedera since day one has always focused on the best in class tech that can offer that scalable environment that transactions can settle at a fraction of a penny at, a very fast finality, like 3 to 5 seconds, and also the security. Everything that Hedera has to offer supports developers too. So again, this is why developers are now starting to build on Hedera more now than ever before. It's because they realize the tech stack. They understand the tech stack. They know Hedera is going to support them. Hedera's always been supporting the dev side of, the ecosystem. And also at this moment, I feel like Hedera is fully focused on the core things that need to be focused on at the moment, where we are starting to see, policy shift around crypto. We're starting to see crypto be embraced in the US and even outside of the US. And we're just starting to see institutional grade focus become a real deal. I mean, institutions are now openly telling us like, hey, crypto's no joke. This is going to be the future. We need to lock in now. We need to focus on this and we need to be a part of it. And that's why we're starting to see increased adoption around some of these great networks like Hedera as well from the institutional side, which is why I do think that now is the best time for them to really focus on institutional grade DeFi. And the same goes for a lot of these other networks as well. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because of more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, Nick, thanks for watching. Peace out.